Muy buenos días a todos, a todas. Normalmente empiezo en español, pero hoy voy a empezar en inglés. Así que si tienen que tomar su siesta por unos minutos antes, mientras que habla inglés, después les hablo en español. So, as Pastor Miguel said, there are a lot of different things that we're celebrating this morning. One of the things that I love about Jesus and the Jesus stories is that they're so relatable. Jesus was incredibly human. He had a mother, like me. He ate food. He took naps. He went on walks. He got angry with people. He laughed. He loved people. And he might have made some mistakes sometimes, like that woman scrambling for the crumbs under the table pointed out to him. I make mistakes. Jesus cried. I cried. He formed relationships. He died. He rose from the dead. And I get that resurrection part too because I have had some Easter moments of my own where I have found joy in the midst of sadness. I get all of this about Jesus. But then we come to the ascension. Hang on a second. Ascending into heaven and being seated at the right hand of God. This I don't get. The ascension story is hard. And actually, the ascension story is a little weird for me. I feel like Jesus kind of ascends on this cloud, and we're just sort of stuck here, looking up, watching, waiting. It's like Jesus is one of those globos de Cantoya, or helium balloon or something that we just sent off into the sky, and he just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And here we are, waiting. In the early church, folks thought that Jesus would return really soon. Some of them thought that he would return very, very soon, like next year, or at the very least in their lifetimes. In Acts, we read of the disciples in that ancient Near Eastern community that after Jesus ascended into the sky on that cloud, they didn't stand there waiting, gaping-mouthed. They got down to the business of being church. 2,000 years later, we see the business of the ascension a little differently. The church calendar begins with Advent, right? And since the Christmas season, we've been remembering God's presence with us. Emmanuel, God with us, right? Then we go through Lent, and we go through Holy Week, where Jesus is tangibly with his followers and disciples. He's in the upper room. He breaks bread with the people that he loves. And then we have Easter morning, and Jesus is present with his followers on the road to Emmaus. And Thomas touches the holes, the wounds in his hand. But now here we are, Ascension Sunday, and Jesus ascends onto this cloud in the sky, and we're just kind of standing here waiting, watching, as Jesus' physical presence fades further and further away from us. There are no obvious angels in bright robes standing next to us here like there were in the Bible story. In fact, there's almost kind of a hole that we feel, because Jesus isn't present the way that he used to be. Ascension Day is the day that God, who was present with us, becomes absent. And apparently the church says that this is something to celebrate. But who wants to celebrate being left here? Who wants to celebrate the day that Jesus left us here on earth, never to be physically seen again on earth? I mean, I bet if the disciples had their way, they would have taken Jesus over to a corner, tied him up, and never let him leave their room. They never would have let him get on that cloud and go up to heaven. I mean, we long to hear God's presence with us. We long to sense God's nearness, God's hand in our lives. And the last thing we need is a day to remind us of God's absence. But maybe that's actually the reason that we're here today. I'm betting that all of us have known God's absence at some point or another, no? We've all known those dark nights of the soul, or those feelings of uncertainty and floundering. We've all had our moments of fear and doubt, our unanswered prayers, our feelings of loneliness. And actually, it's in part those things that have brought us back here. It's that emptiness that brings us back here looking for some sort of spark or presence that we've been missing. After all, we cannot miss what we haven't known. So this feeling of God's absence is our best reassurance that, yeah, we've known God. And yes, we will know God again. Sometimes I think absence is underrated. Absence isn't nothing at all. It's something. It's a hole. It's a feeling. It's a longing. When someone isn't with me, it becomes even more clear to me what that person means to me. Last Monday, Omar took off for Germany. He's traveling with Global Mission, the ELCA, to Berlin and Wittenberg for an enormous celebration of the 500th anniversary of the Lutheran Reformation. He was lucky enough to get invited to play global music with a bunch of really cool musicians from all over the U.S. And this is why he is nowhere to be seen today, and Tonya is taking care of my babies in the Casa Pastoral. So I suppose that like with any couple, there are things that make me crazy about Omar. And the poor guy is not here to defend himself, but I asked him if it was okay to say this, and he said it was. So. But I'm thinking like, really Omar, and some of you like really know Omar pretty well, so you'll understand this, but really Omar, we're listening to hard rock music in the car again. Really? Or, that beard is just getting more and more out of control every day, isn't it? Like, just like a little trim, couldn't we just like cut a little bit off? Or, but Thursday, it was pouring rain, as some of you might have known. I was driving with the twins in the car, and I'm flipping through the radio channels looking for something to listen to. And instead of stopping at the jazz station, where I normally might have stopped, I found myself listening to hard rock music in the car. And then I found myself grooving out to Pitbull in the car. I'm not kidding, there actually was a little reggaeton going on there. And I was missing Omar. He was absent. Or was he? He was present, no? In me. Because that's something that happens when a relationship is strong and true. That absent one has a way of becoming present. Maybe not physically present, but present in mind, present in spirit. So one thing is for sure, there's no sense of absence where we haven't known presence. Yes, I miss Omar, but he'll be back, thank you Jesus, on Monday. But what makes other kinds of absences hurt and ache is when they're attached to a memory of what is no longer there. So absence is picking up the phone to call someone who's dear to us and remembering, wait, that person is no longer here on earth to take my call. Or absence is the kitchen table where the family all sat together and ate dinner thinking this marriage would last forever, and then it didn't. Absence is the pregnancy that dies and never brings to life the baby that was. We cannot miss what we haven't known, which makes that sense of absence that we feel, and especially that sense of God's absence, the very best proof that we know that, yes, we knew God once and we will know God again. It is our sense of God's absence that brings us to church in search of God's presence. Here we have known God's presence. Now maybe not every single Sunday or every single time that we're here, but we've encountered God in a hug from a brother or a sister after church, or maybe in one of the many potlucks or parties that we've shared as a community. Today, on this 69th anniversary of the church, we can sit together and remember old stories that remind us of God's presence. Maybe we'll remember El Papá de Juana, por ejemplo, who was one of the very first members, no? I think, of this church, uno de los primeros miembros que vino aquí a esta iglesia. Or we'll remember Pastor Pepe, encouraging us with words that he gifted this community with week after week. Or maybe we'll remember more recently, 15, 20 kids from the Apostol asleep in the Casa Pastoral for up on the parsonage for a week. These are the stories that remind us of God's presence. We come together, we remember, we feel God's presence move in the stories from our history. And we remember here in community what God's presence feels like. As we talk and begin to remember, we begin to focus on the faces around us. So if you remember our Bible story today, the angels say, "People of Galilee, why do you stand looking up at heaven?" So they're looking and watching, right? As Jesus gets higher and higher on that cloud. Why stand there looking up? The angels ask. Better to look around. Look at each other. Look at the people in your everyday lives. Because by looking around, that is precisely where we find Jesus. In the woman on the bus, in the child crossing the street with her father, in the teenager selling roasted chicken at his uncle's store, the family member across the table from us, our partner asleep in the bed next to us. It's not the same as knowing the flesh and blood of Jesus, but it's a new way of knowing Jesus, present in our bodies, present in our world. The theologian Barbara Brown Taylor suggests that, yes, truth, Jesus, the ascended God, was no longer here on earth. But maybe Jesus was no longer here on earth so that actually he could be everywhere among us. Thousands thousands of years ago, on that day when the disciples brought their gaze from looking up to looking around, things on earth began to change here. Before the ascension, there were a small group of disciples following their beloved teacher. Then after the ascension, they began to organize and become church. They began to preach the good news and practice radical forms of community. They began to let their eyes focus on the least of these and challenge those who abuse their authority. They began to gain momentum and energy and live into their new identity of what it means to be the church. And once they got down to being the church, the earth started to shake a little bit. They became emboldened and convicted and kinder and more compassionate. So certain were these disciples of God's presence that the Bible tells us that where 2 or 3 of them came together in a room, it was like someone else was in the room with them. And that someone was the presence of Jesus. As Taylor suggested, it wasn't as if Jesus had ascended into that cloud in heaven. It was more like he had exploded, and all of that holiness that was concentrated inside of him broke up into 1,000,000 different pieces and flew everywhere. It was as if seeds of holiness were sown far and wide, in you, in me. We come today to church to practice community, and especially on this anniversary Sunday of the church, we come to laugh and connect and remember and to share. We come today to acknowledge God's absence, and then hopefully to acknowledge God's presence. We come today to church longing. As Taylor says, do you miss him sometimes? Do you long for assurance that you have not been left behind? Then why do you stand there looking up at heaven? Look around. Look around.